What if the key to unlocking humanity's greatest secrets has been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years, scattered across the ruins of ancient civilizations, etched into temple walls, buried beneath the sands of time? There are symbols so mysterious, they've baffled historians, archaeologists, and code breakers for centuries. These aren't just random markings, they're whispers from the past, fragments of a forgotten language that once shaped empires, guided explorers, and maybe even held the answers to life's biggest questions. Today, we're stepping into the shadows of history to uncover the truth behind some of the world's most enigmatic symbols. From the swirling patterns of the Nazca lines to the haunting glyphs of the Mayans, each one tells a story, but whose story is it, and why does it still matter to us now? Picture this: you're standing in the heart of an ancient temple, your fingers tracing the grooves of a strange, intricate symbol carved into the stone. The air is thick with the weight of centuries, and you can't shake the feeling that this symbol, this single, silent mark holds power. Was it a warning? A prayer, a map to hidden treasure? The truth is, these symbols were more than just art or decoration. They were the lifeblood of civilizations, the glue that held societies together. They conveyed sacred knowledge, predicted celestial events, and even dictated the rise and fall of kings. But as those civilizations crumbled, their meanings faded into obscurity, leaving behind puzzles that taunt us to this day. This isn't just about solving a historical mystery, it's about understanding the incredible minds that came before us. These symbols are a testament to human ingenuity, to the universal need to communicate, to leave a mark that says, "We were here." And now we have the tools to finally listen. Over the course of this journey, we'll decode the hidden messages of the past, explore the theories that have both thrilled and divided experts, and uncover how these ancient symbols still influence our world in ways you might not expect. So, are you ready to step into the unknown? Because history's greatest secrets are waiting, and they're written in symbols only the boldest can decipher. There's something undeniably magnetic about these ancient symbols, like a whisper across time that pulls us in, demanding to be heard. Think about the last time you saw an Egyptian hieroglyph or the spiraling motifs of Celtic knots. Even if you couldn't decipher them, you likely felt their weight, their mystery. That's because these symbols weren't just scribbles on a wall. They were the heartbeat of entire civilizations, carrying messages that shaped the way people lived, worshipped, and even governed. Take the Ankh, for example. This simple looped cross wasn't just a decorative glyph to the ancient Egyptians. It symbolized life itself, a sacred key to immortality that adorned temple walls and royal tombs alike. Or consider the Mesopotamian seal of the winged disc, a celestial emblem believed to offer divine protection to kings and warriors. These weren't random doodles, they were visual shorthand for ideas so powerful they transcended language. But why do they still fascinate us today? Maybe it's the thrill of the unsolved. Like a puzzle missing half its pieces, these symbols tease us with partial answers. The Mayan glyphs, for instance, weren't fully decoded until the late 20th century, and even now, new interpretations emerge. Or perhaps it's the way they connect us to the people who came before. When you look at the swirling patterns of the Nazca lines, massive geoglyphs etched into the Peruvian desert, you're seeing the same shapes that ancient eyes once traced, wondering at their purpose just as we do. Were they messages to the gods, star maps? No one knows for sure, and that uncertainty is what keeps us digging deeper. What's truly remarkable is how these symbols blur the lines between art, science, and spirituality. The intricate mandalas of Hindu and Buddhist traditions weren't just beautiful designs. They were meditation tools, cosmic blueprints meant to guide the mind toward enlightenment. Even the Viking runes, often romanticized in modern culture, were deeply practical, carved into stones as memorials or used in rituals to invoke Odin's wisdom. Every stroke, every curve held intention, and that's the magic of it. These symbols weren't passive. They were alive with meaning, tools of transformation that could alter reality in the eyes of those who understood them. So as we unravel their secrets, we're not just decoding the past, we're rediscovering a universal human impulse to make sense of the world. Whether etched into clay tablets or towering monoliths, these symbols remind us that the drive to communicate, to leave a mark, is as old as humanity itself. And that's a story worth listening to. Of all the symbols left behind by ancient Egypt, none captures the imagination quite like the Ankh. This elegant loop-topped cross wasn't just a religious icon, it was a key to existence itself, clutched in the hands of gods and pharaohs alike. But what made this symbol so powerful? To understand the Ankh, you have to step into the world of the ancient Egyptians, where life and death weren't in points but parts of an endless cycle. The loop at the top wasn't merely decorative. Some scholars believe it represented the Nile's eternal flow, the lifeblood of their civilization, while the crossbar and stem mirrored the union of opposites, earth and sky, masculine and feminine. When a deity like Isis or Osiris held the Ankh to a mortal's lips in tomb paintings, it wasn't just a gesture, it was a promise, the breath of eternal life. Yet the Ankh's mystery deepens when you consider how it transcended its origins. Unlike many sacred symbols that faded with their cultures, the Ankh slipped into the modern world almost effortlessly. You'll spot it in Gothic jewelry, fantasy films, and even tattoo parlors, a testament to its timeless allure. But here's the fascinating part. While we often associate it with generic mysticism today, the ancient Egyptians saw it as deeply practical. Medical texts describe Ankh-shaped amulets placed on wounds to hasten healing, and temple rituals used it to activate offerings, turning bread and wine into vessels of divine energy. This wasn't just metaphor. To them, the symbol itself held power. Theories about its origins are just as intriguing. Some researchers point to the Ankh's resemblance to a sandal strap, suggesting it symbolized the journey of the soul, literally tying the wearer to the path of the gods. Others argue it mirrors the anatomy of the sunrise, with the loop as the sun cresting the horizon, bringing life each dawn. And then there's the provocative idea that it encodes advanced knowledge, perhaps even a glimpse into lost technologies. Could the Ankh have been more than a spiritual emblem, a schematic, a code, or a forgotten scientific principle? We may never know for certain, but that's the magic of these symbols. They refuse to be pinned down to a single meaning. What's undeniable is how the Ankh bridges worlds. It's rare for an ancient symbol to resonate so deeply across millennia, surviving not as a relic but as a living idea. Whether carved into a temple wall or printed on a modern yoga mat, it still whispers the same message. Life, in all its mystery, is unbreakable, and that's a secret worth carrying forward. Now imagine a blazing sun suspended in the sky, its light stretching outward like vast feathered wings, an image so striking, it became the ultimate emblem of divine authority across ancient Mesopotamia. The winged disc wasn't just art, it was a cosmic signature, a visual declaration that kings ruled with the gods' approval. At its heart, the disc represented Shamash, the sun god who saw all, justice, truth, and even the fate of empires. When this symbol gleamed above a temple's entrance or was pressed into the clay of royal decrees, it wasn't merely decorative. It was a shield, a promise that the ruler beneath it was chosen, protected, and bound to the heavens. But the winged disc's influence didn't stop at Mesopotamia's borders. Its legacy took flight, weaving through history in ways that might surprise you. Consider the halos glowing behind saints in medieval Christian art. Those radiant circles share an uncanny resemblance to the Mesopotamian sun disk. Coincidence? Hardly. Scholars trace a fascinating thread. As trade routes and conquests spread ideas, the winged disc evolved, merging with Egyptian solar imagery, then Persian iconography, before echoing in the sacred art of distant cultures. It's a testament to how symbols, like stories, adapt and endure. What's even more compelling are the theories that push beyond the spiritual. Some researchers suggest the winged disc wasn't just metaphorical. It might have depicted real celestial phenomena. Could it have been inspired by solar eclipses where the sun's corona flares like wings, or perhaps comets streaking across the sky, interpreted as divine messengers? Then there's the provocative idea that it encoded astronomical knowledge, mapping the sun's path or even planetary alignments crucial to agriculture and timekeeping. Yet for all its grandeur, the winged disc also held intimate meaning. On personal amulets, it served as a portable guardian, warding off evil with every glint of light. In courtrooms, its presence reminded judges that Shamash watched justice wasn't just law. It was divine will etched into the world. Today, as we piece together its journey, the winged disc challenges us to see connections across time and faith. It's more than an ancient relic. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's endless quest to touch the sky and claim our place among the stars. Swirling across ancient stone carvings and etched into the armor of warriors, the Celtic Triskelion is more than just a pattern. It's a dance frozen in time. Picture three graceful arms, each spiraling outward like a wheel in motion, yet never reaching an end. This symbol doesn't just sit still. It pulls you into its rhythm as if it's alive. To the Celts, movement wasn't just a physical act, it was sacred. The Triskelion's endless curves mirrored the cycles they revered: life, death, and rebirth, land, sea, and sky, even the three phases of the moon. But here's what's fascinating. This symbol predates the Celts by thousands of years. Neolithic tombs in Ireland and Brittany bear the same spirals, suggesting an idea so universal, it transcended cultures and epochs. What gave the Triskelion such staying power? For one, its versatility. In Celtic mythology, it's often tied to the triple goddess Maiden, Mother, and Crone, embodiment of time's unbroken flow. But shift your gaze to the battlefield, and you'd find it emblazoned on shields, a talisman for strength and resilience. Some scholars argue the three arms symbolized progress, each turn pushing forward like a relentless tide. Others see it as a map of the cosmos, with the spirals tracing the path of the sun or the swirl of galaxies. The truth might be all of these at once. Unlike rigid symbols with fixed meanings, the Triskelion thrived on ambiguity, adapting to the needs of those who wielded it. Fast forward to today, and you'll spot its influence everywhere, from corporate logos echoing forward momentum to tattoos honoring heritage. But there's a deeper reason it resonates now. In a world obsessed with speed, the Triskelion reminds us that motion isn't just about going faster, it's about harmony. Each spiral balances the others, creating beauty through tension. Maybe that's why modern artists and designers keep returning to it. The symbol doesn't just represent movement, it teaches us how to move. And then there's the mystery no one can fully explain. Why do these spirals appear in places as far apart as Malta, Greece, and Scandinavia? Was it trade, migration, or something more profound? A shared human instinct to capture the pulse of existence in a single, swirling line. The Triskelion won't give up its secrets easily, but that's the allure. It invites us to keep turning, keep questioning, just like its endless arms. Among the rugged runestones of Scandinavia, one symbol stands out for its stark geometry and chilling legacy, the Valknut. Three interlocking triangles woven together in an unbreakable knot. This ancient Norse emblem pulses with the energy of battle, fate, and the mysteries of the afterlife. Often found carved beside images of Odin, the All-Father, or scenes of fallen warriors, the Valknut wasn't just decoration. It was a portal. To the Vikings, death in battle wasn't an end. It was a ticket to Valhalla, Odin's great hall, where the chosen would feast and fight until Ragnarök. The Valknut, it was their boarding pass, but here's where the intrigue deepens. Unlike the Ankh or the winged disc, the Valknut's name isn't even ancient. It's a modern label, stitched together from Old Norse words meaning knot of the slain. The Vikings left no manual explaining its meaning, and that silence has fueled centuries of debate. Some scholars see it as a symbol of fate, its intertwined lines mirroring the threads of destiny spun by the Norns. Others argue it represents the 9 worlds of Norse cosmology, with each triangle embodying a triad of realms. Then there's the gripping theory that it's a literal map of the afterlife, a diagram showing how the soul journeys through layers of existence, guided by Odin's hand. The Valknut's power wasn't just symbolic, it was dangerous. Unlike other Norse symbols worn openly like Thor's hammer, the Valknut rarely appeared on everyday objects. It clung to funeral stones, weaponry, and Odin's own imagery, as if marking thresholds between worlds. Touch it without reverence, and you might invite more than you bargained for. Even today, some heathens and historians treat it with caution, a reminder that certain symbols carry weight beyond their lines. What's equally fascinating is how the Valknut has been reclaimed in modern times. You'll spot it in Viking-themed tattoos, heavy metal album art, and even protest movements, each reinterpretation layering new meaning onto the old. But at its core, the Valknut remains what it always was, a riddle wrapped in a mystery, etched by hands who believed the greatest honor was to die with a sword in hand and a symbol at your side. And perhaps that's why it endures, not because we've solved it, but because it still dares us to try. Buried beneath the dry earth of modern-day Pakistan and India lies a script so enigmatic, it makes the Voynich manuscript look like a children's book. The symbols of the Indus Valley civilization, delicate yet precise, etched onto soapstone seals and fragments of pottery, have kept linguists awake at night for over a century. Here's what makes them so tantalizing. We've catalogued more than 400 distinct signs, from graceful fish-like curves to stark geometric grids, but without a single bilingual inscription like the Rosetta Stone, their meaning slips through our fingers like sand. This isn't just a forgotten language, it's a 5,000-year-old conversation we're desperate to join. Take one of those iconic seals, a square stamp no larger than a postage stamp, etched with a bull and a row of cryptic symbols. To the untrained eye, it might look like decorative marks, but consider this. These seals traveled across ancient trade routes, pressed into clay to mark goods, almost like Bronze Age barcodes. Some scholars argue the script isn't language at all, but a system of clan symbols or accounting notations. Others point to patterns in the symbol's arrangement, repeated sequences that mimic grammatical structures hinting at a full-fledged writing system. The debate isn't just academic. Cracking this code could rewrite our understanding of one of humanity's first urban cultures. What's especially haunting is how little we know about the people who created these symbols. The Indus Valley civilization flourished alongside Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt with planned cities, advanced drainage systems, and a startling lack of evidence for warfare or grand monuments to kings. Their script might hold the key to why they thrived and why they vanished. Were these symbols prayers to forgotten gods, records of monsoon cycles, or perhaps something more radical? A handful of researchers suggest the script could represent an early form of Dravidian, a language family still spoken in southern India today. If true, it would create a cultural bridge spanning millennia. Yet for all our supercomputers and machine learning algorithms, the script resists decoding. Part of the challenge, most inscriptions are painfully short, just 5 or 6 characters at most, leaving no room for context. It's like trying to reconstruct Shakespeare from a handful of random book titles, and then there's the eerie silence. Unlike Egypt's boastful hieroglyphs or Mesopotamia's meticulous clay tablets, the Indus people left no royal decrees, no epic poems. Their symbols whisper where others shout. Perhaps that's why this mystery endures. The Indus script isn't just a linguistic puzzle, it's a mirror reflecting our own limits. For all our technological prowess, there are still voices from the past we can't hear, stories we can't read, and maybe that's okay. Some secrets aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to remind us how much wonder still hides in the cracks of history. High above the jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya once charted the movements of Venus with such precision. Their calculations were off by mere seconds compared to modern astronomy. But they didn't need telescopes or supercomputers, just an intricate system of glyphs, each one a doorway into their cosmic imagination. These weren't mere scratches on stone. They were a living language weaving together history, prophecy, and the very fabric of time itself. Take the famous Dresden Codex, a bark paper book filled with swirling glyphs. To the untrained eye, it might look like abstract art, but crack its code, and you'll find detailed tables predicting solar eclipses, the phases of Venus, even the best days for planting crops. This wasn't guesswork, it was mathematics in its purest form, disguised as symbols. What's staggering is how the Maya visualized time. Forget straight lines. For them, time was a wheel turning in grand cycles called backtons. Each cycle spanned 144,000 days, and their long count calendar could pinpoint dates thousands of years in the past or future. But here's the twist: their glyphs didn't just record dates, they infused them with meaning. A carving at Capon might show a king's accession, but hidden in the glyphs are celestial alignments, hinting that his rule was timed to a sacred planetary dance. Even wars were waged by the stars, with battles scheduled to coincide with Venus rising as the great star of war. Decoding these symbols wasn't easy. Early archaeologists assumed the glyphs were simple pictograms, until linguists like Yuri Norisov cracked their syllabic nature in the 1950s. Suddenly, a single glyph like Kain could mean both sun and day, revealing layers of puns and wordplay. The Maya weren't just scribes, they were poets of time, wrapping double meanings into every carving. Yet for all their precision, the Maya's greatest prophecy might be their own cautionary tale. Their calendar didn't predict the end of the world in 2012, as pop culture claimed. It marked the end of a cycle, a chance for renewal. Perhaps that's their real legacy, not just as astronomers, but as storytellers who carved a reminder into stone. Time doesn't control us, we give it meaning. And in those glyphs, they left us the tools to find our own. There's a quiet power in tracing your finger along the spiral path of a labyrinth, not a maze with dead ends and tricks, but a single, winding route that pulls you inexorably toward the center. This ancient symbol, carved into stone floors from Crete to medieval cathedrals, isn't just a relic of the past. It's a living metaphor, a blueprint for the human journey. Take the legendary labyrinth of King Minos on Crete, where the Minotaur supposedly lurked. Most people imagine a chaotic maze, but historians argue it was likely a classical labyrinth, a single, looping path symbolizing the hero's inevitable confrontation with his own darkness. That's the paradox of the labyrinth. Its twists and turns aren't meant to confuse but to focus. Every step, though circuitous, is purposeful. What's striking is how this design transcends cultures. The same spiral appears in Hopi medicine wheels, Celtic stone carvings, even the floor of Chartres Cathedral, where pilgrims once walked it on their knees as a spiritual journey in miniature. The message is universal. Life isn't a straight line. Transformation comes through the winding path, the struggle, the act of moving forward even when the route doubles back on itself. Modern psychology has latched onto this wisdom. Therapists now use labyrinth walking as a tool for mindfulness, its rhythmic turns quieting the chatter of the mind. Cancer patients, veterans, even corporate executives report something uncanny happens when they walk these paths. The body's movement becomes a mirror for inner change. But here's where it gets fascinating. Archaeologists have found labyrinths etched into Bronze Age tablets, not as grand structures but as tiny personal amulets. Were they carried as protective charms, maps for the afterlife? Some scholars think they served as portable pilgrimages, allowing those who couldn't travel to sacred sites to make the journey symbolically, tracing the path with a fingertip. That's the labyrinth's genius. It collapses the vast and unreachable into something you can hold in your hand. Today, you'll find labyrinths in hospital gardens, university quads, and urban parks. They've outlived empires because they speak to a truth deeper than myth, that every journey, no matter how tangled, leads somewhere, not necessarily where you expected, but where you needed to go. And maybe that's why we keep returning to this ancient symbol, not to escape the chaos of life, but to remember that within it there's always a path. Imagine holding a cracked turtle shell in your hands, its surface etched with delicate symbols burned into the bone by fire, a message not just from the past but from the gods themselves. This was the sacred art of the Shang dynasty's oracle bones, where kings and priests sought answers in the very cracks of destiny. Over 3,000 years ago, these rituals weren't mere superstition, they were the foundation of an empire's decisions. Will the harvest flourish? Should the army march? Even personal dilemmas like a queen's childbirth found their way onto these fragments, transforming everyday objects into conduits of the divine. What makes these bones extraordinary isn't just their purpose, it's their legacy. Those etched symbols, they're the earliest known ancestors of modern Chinese characters. Picture this: a priest presses a hot bronze rod into a turtle's plastron, and as the bone splits, the cracks form patterns believed to reveal heaven's will. Then, alongside those cracks, he carves the question and the interpretation. Over time, these notations evolved from pictorial representations to abstract lines, laying the groundwork for one of the world's oldest continuously used writing systems. It's as if every time you write a Chinese character today, you're tracing the echoes of a Shang priest's prayer. But here's the twist: these bones weren't discovered until the late 19th century, when farmers in Enyang began unearthing them as dragon bones to sell as folk medicine. Scholars only recognized their true significance when a sharp-eyed antiquarian noticed the markings weren't random scratches, they were a lost language. Suddenly, fragments once ground into powder for potions became priceless historical artifacts, rewriting our understanding of China's Bronze Age. The content of these inscriptions reads like a drama penned by the gods themselves. One bone might record a king's plea for rain, another a warning about invading tribes. Some even bear the notation lucky or unlucky, proving the priests tracked their accuracy like ancient data scientists. And the questions: one particularly poignant inscription asks whether the queen's toothache would subside, a reminder that even rulers trembled before the unknown. What's mesmerizing is how these bones blend the practical and the mystical. Unlike the Mayan glyphs or Egyptian hieroglyphs, which adorned monuments, oracle bones were intimate, utilitarian. Yet their influence towers over centuries. The very strokes that once divined the future now fill books, street signs, and smartphone screens, proof that some symbols don't just predict history, they shape it. And perhaps that's the most profound message of all, that writing itself began not just to record, but to reach beyond the human world, to whisper questions into the universe and wait for the cracks to answer. Buried in the ashes of a Minoan palace on Crete lies one of archaeology's most stubborn puzzles, the Phaistos Disc. Unearthed in 1908, this fired clay tablet, no wider than a dinner plate, spins a mystery in spirals. 45 unique symbols, from helmeted heads to bees, from ships to shackled captives, stamp their way inward like a silent whirlpool of Bronze Age thought. What's baffling isn't just the symbols themselves, but how they were made. Unlike hand-carved inscriptions, these marks were pressed into the clay with individual seals, making this disc the earliest known example of movable type, a technology not seen again for another 3,000 years. Was this a prayer tablet, a merchant's ledger, or something far stranger? Theories swirl as thickly as the disc spirals. Some linguists argue the symbols represent a lost Minoan script, perhaps a precursor to Linear A, the still undeciphered writing of ancient Crete. Others see echoes of Anatolian or even Egyptian hieroglyphs, suggesting it could be a diplomatic message or a traveler's phrasebook. Then there's the tantalizing numerical pattern, groups of symbols separated by slashes, hinting at a coded system. Could it be an ancient board game's rulebook, a calendar tracking lunar cycles? The lack of any duplicate symbols in archaeological finds only deepens the enigma. This wasn't some mass-produced item, but a singular artifact with a singular purpose. But what really sets the Phaistos Disc apart is how it defies time. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, which gave scholars a key to unlock Egyptian hieroglyphs, this disc stands alone. No bilingual inscriptions, no parallel texts, just 242 symbols marching in a spiral chorus no modern ear can hear. Some fringe researchers, playing with fire, have proposed wilder ideas, that the disc's perfect symmetry and stamped precision suggest knowledge beyond its era, even extraterrestrial influence. Most scholars dismiss this, but the very suggestion speaks to the disc's power. It doesn't just resist translation, it ignites imagination. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in its context. Found in a chamber near the palace's religious quarters, alongside ceremonial libation tables and goddess figurines, the disc likely had sacred significance. Imagine a priestess pressing each symbol into clay, not for human eyes, but as an offering to the gods, a prayer stamped in fire and earth. Or consider the darker possibility. Those shackled figures could hint at a ritual tied to Crete's mythic labyrinth, where sacrifices were made to the Minotaur. The disc doesn't give answers, it whispers questions in a language we've yet to reclaim, and that's the magic of it. While other ancient symbols connect us to the past through deciphered words, the Phaistos Disc keeps its silence. It's a reminder that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to remind us how much wonder still lingers at the edges of history, waiting for the right key to turn. Until then, the disc spins on, a Bronze Age riddle wrapped in clay, daring us to listen. There's a creature that slithers through the shadows of nearly every ancient civilization, a serpent with its tail clamped in its jaws, forming an unbroken circle. The Ouroboros isn't just a symbol, it's a paradox made visible. How can something destroy itself yet endure? The Egyptians painted it in tombs as early as the 14th century BC, calling it the encircler, a guardian of the underworld who swallowed the sun each night only to rebirth it at dawn. But the Greeks saw it differently. To them, it was the ultimate alchemical emblem etched into texts with the words hen to pan. The all is one, a reminder that creation and destruction are two sides of the same coin. What's mesmerizing about the Ouroboros is how effortlessly it bridges the sacred and the scientific. Medieval alchemists revered it as the key to the philosopher's stone, believing the serpent's self-consumption mirrored the process of purifying base metals into gold. Fast forward to today, and you'll find it in quantum physics, symbolizing the infinite cycle of particle annihilation and regeneration. Even DNA's double helix echoes its coiled form, as if the symbol encoded a truth about life itself long before we had the tools to see it. But the Ouroboros isn't just about grand cosmic cycles, it's deeply personal. Carl Jung seized on it as a metaphor for the psyche's journey, where the ego must devour its own illusions to grow. Modern therapists use it to illustrate recovery. Sometimes you have to dismantle yourself to rebuild. And then there's pop culture, where the serpent slithers into everything from Marvel's Loki mythology to cyberpunk anime, always whispering the same lesson: endings are beginnings in disguise. Perhaps that's why this symbol endures. It doesn't just represent infinity, it demands participation. To gaze at the Ouroboros is to confront a question etched in time. What would it mean to embrace your own endings, not as failures, but as fuel for what comes next? The serpent doesn't answer, it just keeps turning, a silent revolution in ink and stone. High in the Bandiagara escarpment of Mali, the Dogon people have guarded a secret for centuries, a symbol so precise, it maps the heavens in ways that defy explanation. At the heart of their cosmology lies Sirius, the brightest star in our sky, but not for its brilliance alone. The Dogon depict it with a curious companion, a tiny, dense star they call Potolo, represented by a spiral within their sacred iconography. Here's the staggering part: modern astronomy confirmed Sirius B, a white dwarf star invisible without telescopes, in the 19th century. Yet the Dogon's oral traditions described its elliptical orbit, its 50-year cycle, even its unimaginable density, claiming this smallest thing was heaviest of all. How could a culture without optical instruments know such details? The mystery deepens when you examine their rituals. Every 50 years, the Dogon celebrate the Sigwi festival, a renewal ceremony timed to Sirius B's orbital period. Their priests speak of a third star in the system, Emya, which astronomers still debate today. Some researchers point to the Dogon's intricate sand drawings, geometric patterns mirroring celestial alignments, as proof of advanced observational techniques. Others argue their knowledge traces back to ancient Egyptian or Mesopotamian contact, where Sirius held sacred significance. But the most provocative theory, that the Dogon's ancestors were visited by beings from the Sirius system itself, a claim anthropologist Marcel Grioul recorded in the 1930s after years of living among them. Skeptics counter that Grioul's interpretations might have been influenced by his own expectations, or that the Dogon could have absorbed astronomical knowledge from European missionaries. Yet even this critique falters when faced with the specificity of their lore. The Dogon didn't just know Sirius B existed, they described its characteristics with eerie accuracy, from its composition to its gravitational pull. Their creation myths even speak of Nommo, amphibious beings who descended from Sirius to bring wisdom, depicted in carvings with fish-like tails and upraised arms. What's undeniable is how the Dogon wove this cosmic awareness into daily life. Their granaries, shaped like the Sirius symbol, stored not just grain but knowledge. Their dances mirrored star movements, turning the sky into a living scripture. Whether their wisdom came from celestial observation, lost civilizations, or something more extraordinary, the Dogon challenge our assumptions about how ancient cultures understood the universe. Their symbols aren't just art, they're a challenge to look up and wonder what else we might have missed in the stars. Picture two snakes winding around a winged staff, the Caduceus emblazoned on ambulances, medical textbooks, and pharmacy signs worldwide. Now imagine a single serpent coiled around a rough-hewn rod, the true staff of Asclepius. One is a millennia-old mix-up, the other a sacred emblem of healing, yet their stories have become so tangled, even professionals struggle to tell them apart. The irony, the Caduceus with its flashy wings and twin snakes, was never meant to represent medicine at all. This ancient symbol belonged to Hermes, the Greek god of trade, thieves, and messengers, a far cry from the healing arts. So how did a staff meant for merchants end up as the face of modern medicine? The answer lies in a bureaucratic blunder with roots in the 19th century. The mix-up began with the U.S. Army Medical Corps in 1902, when an officer mistakenly adopted the Caduceus as its insignia, likely confusing it with Asclepius's single snake staff. From there, the error spread like wildfire. Hospitals, medical associations, and even pharmaceutical companies embraced the more visually striking Caduceus, unaware of its commercial origins. Meanwhile, Asclepius's rod, the legitimate symbol of healing since at least 800 BC, was sidelined. Ancient Greeks revered Asclepius so deeply, they built healing temples called Asclepions, where non-venomous snakes slithered freely as embodiments of renewal. Patients would sleep in these sanctuaries, believing the god serpent would visit them in dreams with cures. The single snake wasn't just decoration. It symbolized rejuvenation, echoing the creature's ability to shed its skin and emerge renewed. Yet the Caduceus carries its own fascinating history. Hermes' staff wasn't just a badge for traders, it was a tool of diplomacy, said to reconcile opposing forces. The two snakes, often interpreted as balance or duality, might represent the harmony between illness and wellness, life and death. Some scholars argue the wings signify the speed of healing, while others see them as a nod to Hermes' role as a psychopomp, guiding souls to the afterlife. Even the mistaken adoption of the Caduceus in medicine holds a strange resonance. Doctors, like Hermes, are messengers, translating the language of disease into treatment. Today, the debate over these symbols isn't just academic. It's a reflection of how easily meaning can shift across centuries. While the American Medical Association finally corrected the record in 1912, reverting to Asclepius's rod, the Caduceus had already cemented its place in popular culture. Walk into any hospital and you'll likely spot both, a silent testament to humanity's knack for blending myth and modernity. Perhaps there's a lesson in their shared imagery. Whether one snake or two, the serpent remains an eternal emblem of transformation, reminding us that healing, like history, is rarely a straight line. Weighing nearly 25 tons and stretching 12 feet across, the Aztec Sunstone isn't just an artifact, it's a universe carved in basalt. Discovered buried beneath Mexico City's Zocalo in 1790, this colossal disc was once thought to be a simple calendar, but look closer and you'll see a cosmic blueprint. At its center glows the face of Tanatia, the sun god, his tongue bared like a sacrificial blade, demanding the blood that kept the cosmos in motion. Surrounding him, 4 square panels depicting the eras of creation and destruction the Aztecs believed had come before, each one ending in catastrophe. From jaguars devouring the earth to hurricanes of fire. This wasn't just timekeeping, it was a warning etched in stone. The 5th sun, their present age, would someday fall too, unless humanity fed the gods with reverence and ritual. What's astonishing is how the stone encodes time with mathematical precision. The outer ring bursts with 20-day signs: jaguar, reed, flint, knife, repeating in cycles of 260 days to form the sacred Tonalpohualli calendar. But layered atop this is the Zu Pohualli, the solar year of 365 days. Together, they interlock like gears in a celestial machine, aligning only once every 52 years in the dreaded Binding of the Years ceremony. Imagine the terror and hope of that night. All fires extinguished, priests watching the Pleiades, waiting to strike a new flame on a sacrificial victim's chest. If the stars moved as predicted, the sun would rise again, if not, eternal darkness. Yet the sunstone's genius goes beyond astronomy. Every symbol is a political manifesto. The 4 previous suns aren't just myths, they're a justification for Aztec rule. By placing their era at the center, the stone declares their dominion as divinely ordained, a fragile order maintained through war and sacrifice. Even the choice of material speaks volumes. Carved from volcanic rock, it ties their empire to the very bones of the earth, a permanent claim on the land. Modern eyes often misread the stone as a doomsday prophecy, but its true message is subtler. The Aztecs didn't live in fear of the end. They saw time as cyclical, destruction as renewal. Today, as the stone hangs in Mexico's National Museum, it still pulses with relevance not as a relic but as a mirror. In an age of climate crises and collapsing empires, its symbols ask us, what gods are we feeding? And what world will our rituals sustain? Carved into weathered standing stones and the hilts of Viking swords, runes weren't just letters, they were conduits of raw cosmic energy. The Norse didn't merely write with these angular symbols, they wielded them. Take the Elder Futhark, the oldest runic alphabet, where each character bore a name and a force of its own. Answers wasn't just an A, it meant breath of Odin, a whisper of divine inspiration. Thuris as a thorn, a weapon, a lightning bolt of chaos. To scratch these shapes into bone or oak wasn't just communication. It was an act of alchemy, turning mundane objects into vessels of power. Consider the Lindholm amulet, a tiny bone plaque from Denmark etched with a chaotic jumble of runes. At first glance, it looks like nonsense, until you realize it's a spell, a desperate plea for protection repeated over and over like a mantra. Or the infamous Björketorp runestone in Sweden, its inscription a chilling warning. I foresee perdition for the one who breaks this monument, prophecy of destruction. Death to the betrayer. This wasn't poetry, it was a curse woven into the very landscape, meant to echo across centuries. Even everyday tools like fishing hooks bore runic blessings, their grooves filled with pleas to Enjerd, god of the sea, for a bountiful catch. But rune magic wasn't just about fear or domination. The Vikings saw these symbols as a dialogue with the unseen. Women carved runes onto talismans for safe childbirth, their strokes invoking Frigg's mercy. Farmers marked their plows with prosperity charms, turning furrows into fertile prayers. And then there were the love spells like the Ribe skull fragment, where runes whisper of unbreakable bonds and longing. The line between alphabet and incantation didn't exist for them. Every stroke of the knife was a negotiation with fate. What's startling is how modern archaeology confirms their belief in rune magic's potency. Swords like the famed Ulfbert blades often bear runic inscriptions beneath their hilts, hidden where only the wielder would know, a secret pact between warrior and weapon. X-rays reveal some runestones were deliberately cracked after carving, as if activating their magic through ritual destruction. Even the act of staining runes with blood or ochre wasn't decorative. It was a way to awaken the symbols to feed them with life force. Yet for all their power, runes carried a warning. The sagas tell of clumsy sorcerers who misspelled inscriptions, unleashing disasters instead of blessings. A misplaced line could turn a healing charm into a hex, a lesson in humility for those who dared to play God. Perhaps that's why Odin, the Allfather, endured 9 nights hanged from Yggdrasil to win the runes. They weren't just tools but sacred trust. Today, as we trace these ancient marks, we're not just decoding history, we're touching the same currents of awe and terror that once hummed through the Viking world, where every letter was a bridge between earth and the divine. Few symbols hold as much layered meaning as the Eye of Horus, that striking almond-shaped emblem with its sweeping curve and bold teardrop marking. At first glance, it might look like an elaborate hieroglyph, but this was far more than decoration. To the ancient Egyptians, it was a living shield against chaos, a mathematical marvel, and a blueprint for the human body itself. The myth behind it reads like an epic. After the god Horus lost his left eye battling his uncle set for the throne of Egypt, the moon god Thoth miraculously restored it. But this wasn't just a story of divine healing. The restored eye became the ultimate symbol of wholeness, proof that even shattered things could be made stronger than before. What's astonishing is how the Eye of Horus merged spirituality with startling precision. The symbol wasn't just sacred geometry, it was ancient Egypt's version of a medical textbook. Priests and physicians divided the eye into 6 parts, each representing a different fraction from the eyebrow as 1/8 to the teardrop as 1/64. These weren't arbitrary, they mirrored the proportions Egyptian doctors used to mix medicines, calculating dosages with an accuracy that wouldn't be matched in Europe for millennia. A prescription for headache relief might call for 1 hecat of the eye's pupil measure of willow bark, tapping into a system where myth and math were inseparable. But the eye's power didn't stop at the pharmacy. Amulets carved in its likeness were placed within mummy wrappings, guarding the dead on their journey through the underworld. Sailors painted it on their boats to ward off Nile crocodiles, while mothers tucked tiny silver eyes into their children's clothing as talismans against fever. Even today, you'll spot its influence in modern medical logos, a silent nod to its legacy as the first universal emblem of healing. Perhaps the most haunting aspect is how the eye blurred the line between protection and surveillance. In temple art, it often appears hovering above pharaohs, not just shielding them but watching. This duality, comfort and judgment, resonates in our modern obsession with the all-seeing eye, from pyramid-topped dollar bills to digital security icons. The ancients understood something we're still grappling with. True protection requires both care and accountability. So the next time you see that sleek, stylized eye, remember, it's not just a relic. It's a 3,000-year-old reminder that healing isn't passive. It demands precision, vigilance, and above all, the courage to face what's broken and make it whole again. Few symbols carry as heavy a burden as the swastika, a shape so ancient it appears in Neolithic cave art, yet so modern in its infamy. Long before it became synonymous with hatred, this simple cross with bent arms spun through history as a beacon of hope. In Sanskrit, the word swastika literally means well-being or good fortune, and for over 3,000 years, that's exactly what it represented. Hindu priests traced it in vermilion powder at wedding ceremonies. Buddhists carved it into temple gates as a map of the Buddha's footsteps, and Norse artisans wove it into protective amulets to honor Thor's hammer. Even Native American tribes like the Navajo used it in healing rituals, calling it the whirling log, a symbol of harmony and the 4 sacred directions. The swastika's sacred geometry reveals why it resonated across cultures. Its arms, typically bent at 90 degrees, create a sense of motion. Some scholars argue it mimics the sun's path across the sky, while others see it as a stylized spiral of life energy. In Jainism, the 4 arms symbolize the 4 possible states of rebirth, and in ancient Greece, it adorned pottery as a meander pattern, representing eternal flow. What's striking is how consistently it symbolized positivity until the 20th century, when a single regime weaponized it. The Nazi appropriation wasn't just a theft, it was a perversion. Hitler's twisted version, rotated 45 degrees and stripped of its intricate dot embellishments, became a brand of terror. The irony is painful. A symbol meant to invoke life was twisted to justify death on an unimaginable scale. Today, the swastika's original forms still grace Hindu temples and Tibetan prayer flags, but in the West, it's become a social taboo, its sacred past overshadowed by collective trauma. Yet there's a quiet movement to reclaim it. In India, activists host swastika rehabilitation workshops, teaching how to distinguish the ancient swastika from its corrupted counterpart. Archaeologists in Israel recently uncovered a Byzantine church floor adorned with swastikas, proof of its once universal appeal. Even in Berlin, artists have projected the Hindu swastika onto buildings at night, a fleeting reminder of its stolen legacy. The question isn't just whether the swastika can be redeemed, but whether we can separate a symbol from its darkest chapter. Perhaps the answer lies in the very nature of the swastika itself, a shape that has always represented cycles. If it could span millennia as a force for good, maybe, just maybe, time can turn it once more. Stretching its wings across 3,000 years of history, the double-headed eagle is one of humanity's most enduring political symbols, a creature with two faces, each gazing in opposite directions, yet bound to a single body. Its earliest known appearance dates back to the Hittite Empire, carved into stone reliefs at their capital of Hattusa around the 13th century BCE. There, it wasn't just an artistic flourish, it was a declaration. One head watched over the earthly realm, the other fixed on the divine, embodying the Hittite king's dual role as both military commander and high priest. This wasn't merely mythology, it was statecraft in visual form, a reminder that true power balanced the tangible and the transcendent. By the time the Byzantine Empire adopted the symbol a millennium later, its meaning had deepened. The Palaiologos dynasty, rulers of Constantinople, emblazoned the double-headed eagle on their banners, transforming it into a geopolitical statement. With one head facing Europe and the other Asia, the eagle mirrored Byzantium's unique position as the bridge between continents, cultures, and faiths. But there's a fascinating twist. Byzantine artisans often depicted the eagle clutching a sword and an orb, symbols of temporal and spiritual authority. This subtle detail revealed the empire's ambition not just to govern land, but to shape souls. What's remarkable is how the symbol refused to fade with the empires that birthed it. When Byzantine Princess Sophia Palaiologina married Ivan III of Moscow in the 15th century, she brought the double-headed eagle with her, grafting it onto Russia's nascent identity. Today, it remains central to the coats of arms of nations from Albania to Serbia, a silent heir to Byzantine grandeur. Even the Holy Roman Empire couldn't resist its allure, adopting the eagle to signify their claim as successors to Rome's legacy. Yet the double-headed eagle's resilience isn't just about power, it's about paradox. The symbol thrives in democracies and monarchies alike, its duality allowing endless reinterpretation. In Austria, it grips a hammer and sickle, celebrating labor and agriculture. In Montenegro, a lion replaces one head, blending medieval Serbian pride with imperial imagery. And in Freemasonry, the eagle's two faces symbolize the union of opposites, light and dark, active and passive, a reminder that governance, like alchemy, requires balancing forces. Perhaps that's why this ancient emblem still soars. In a world fractured by division, the double-headed eagle whispers an uncomfortable truth. Real authority isn't about choosing between realms, but holding both in tension. Whether carved into Hittite ruins or stamped on modern passports, it challenges every leader who bears it. Can you truly see in two directions at once? Among the intricate pages of the Book of Kells, where emerald inks and gold leaf illuminate ancient scripture, one symbol stands out for its deceptive simplicity: the triquetra. At first glance, it's just three graceful arcs woven into an endless knot, but spend a moment tracing its paths, and you'll realize there's no beginning or end. This is the magic of the triquetra, a symbol so fluid in its meaning, it has slipped effortlessly between pagan reverence and Christian devotion, never fully belonging to either yet cherished by both. To the Celts, its three interlocked corners might have represented the sacred feminine triad maiden, mother, and crone, or the natural forces of earth, sea, and sky. But when Christian monks copied it into their manuscripts, those same loops became the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, a geometric hymn to the Trinity. What's remarkable is how the triquetra's design mirrors its spiritual significance. Unlike static symbols, its loops create an optical illusion of motion, as if the knot is slowly rotating before your eyes. Scholars call this a Borromean link, a structure where no two strands are directly connected, yet removing one collapses the whole. It's a breathtaking metaphor for interdependence, whether applied to the threefold nature of divinity or the balance of human existence. Even today, mathematicians study its topology, marveling at how an ancient symbol anticipated concepts in knot theory by over a millennium. But the triquetra isn't just a relic of ink and parchment. Walk into any modern tattoo parlor, and you'll find it inked onto skin as a badge of heritage or personal faith. Neo-pagans weave it into rituals honoring the triple goddess, while Christians wear it as a subtle declaration of belief. Its resurgence in pop culture, from TV's Charmed to Marvel's Thor, proves its adaptability, a shape that refuses to be pinned down to a single era or ideology. Perhaps the triquetra's true power lies in its silence. Unlike runes or hieroglyphs, it carries no fixed script, no dogma. It's a vessel ready to hold whatever meaning the viewer brings to it. And in that openness, it whispers a timeless truth, that the sacred isn't found in rigid definitions, but in the spaces where ideas intersect, forever looping back on themselves in an elegant, unbroken dance. Rising from the sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia like man-made mountains, the ziggurats were more than just temples, they were cosmic staircases, their every step etched with symbols meant to bridge mortal realms with the divine. Picture the great ziggurat of Ur, its terraced sides glowing burnt orange under the Mesopotamian sun, each level painted a different color to represent the layers of existence. The lowest tier, black as fertile soil, stood for the underworld. The red above it embodied the earthly plane, the blue symbolized the heavens, and the dazzling white summit was reserved for the gods themselves. This wasn't mere architecture, it was a ladder of sacred geometry designed to guide priests, and only priests closer to the celestial realm with every ascent. What's astonishing is how these structures encoded astronomical knowledge into their very alignment. The ziggurat at Babylon, Etemenanke, was precisely oriented to track Venus's movements, its stairways angled so that priests could observe the planet's cycles without instruments. The symbols adorning its walls weren't random either. Cuneiform tablets describe me, divine decrees inscribed on each level, acting as metaphysical keys to unlock communication with deities like Enlil or Inanna. One particularly haunting relief depicts a god handing the rod and ring, symbols of justice and eternal rule, to a king at the ziggurat's peak. The message was clear: authority flowed downward from the heavens, and this structure was the conduit. But the ziggurat's influence didn't stop at Mesopotamia. Its DNA whispers through later monuments across the globe. The stepped pyramids of Teotihuacan, with their stark, angular tiers, echo the ziggurat's sacred ascent. Even the Hindu temple complexes of Angkor Wat, with their towering central shrines flanked by concentric galleries, follow a similar spiritual blueprint, earth reaching skyward. Some scholars argue the ziggurate's design traveled along trade routes carried by merchants and conquerors. Others see it as proof of a shared human instinct that to build upward is to reach for transcendence. Yet there's a darker layer to their symbolism. Unlike Egypt's pyramids, which sealed pharaohs away in death, ziggurates were intensely alive. At their summits, priests performed the sacred marriage ritual, a union of human and divine meant to ensure fertility and prosperity. But cuneiform texts hint at more ominous ceremonies, offerings tossed into the abzu, a sacred well at the base believed to connect to the primordial waters of creation. Were these whispers of sacrifices literal or symbolic to appease the gods? The ziggurate's height, then, wasn't just about elevation, it was about control. By monopolizing access to the divine, rulers cemented their power, turning theology into politics. Today, as we gaze at their ruined silhouettes against modern skylines, ziggurates challenge our understanding of sacred space. They weren't just buildings, they were ideological machines, shaping how entire civilizations saw their place in the cosmos. And perhaps that's their ultimate lesson, that architecture, at its most profound, isn't about shelter, but about shaping the stories we tell ourselves of where heaven and earth meet. At the heart of Himalayan monasteries and hidden within ancient Sanskrit texts lies a secret map, not of lands or stars, but of the mind itself. The mandala, with its concentric circles and precise geometry, isn't just art, it's a cosmic blueprint, a spiritual GPS designed to guide seekers from the chaos of the outer world to the stillness within. Picture a Tibetan monk crouched on a temple floor, painstakingly pouring colored sands into intricate patterns over days or even weeks. Every grain is placed with intention, every line a meditation in itself. But here's the paradox: once completed, these breathtaking designs are ritually destroyed, swept away in a vibrant cascade of impermanence. Why? Because the mandala's true power isn't in its permanence, but in its process. What makes mandalas extraordinary is how they translate the infinite cosmos into tangible form. In Hindu tradition, the square enclosures represent the earthly realm, while the outer circles symbolize the universe's boundless edges. At the center, a single point, the bindu, holds the seed of creation, embodying both the universe's origin and the practitioner's awakened consciousness. Buddhist mandalas take this further, transforming into three-dimensional palaces where deities reside. The Kalachakra mandala, for instance, isn't just a flat diagram. It's a multi-layered universe, with each of its 700-plus deities representing facets of enlightenment. To meditate upon it isn't passive observation, it's an active journey, visualizing oneself moving through corridors of wisdom toward the divine center. Modern science has begun unraveling why these symbols resonate so deeply. Neuroscientists studying monks in meditation found that mandala contemplation triggers unique brainwave patterns, synchronizing the logical left hemisphere with the creative right. The repetitive geometric patterns act as visual mantras, quieting the default mode network, the brain's noise of self-referential thought. It's as if these ancient designs anticipated cognitive science by millennia, offering a tool to hack the mind's chaos. Yet mandalas aren't confined to temples. Jungian psychologists adopted them as tools for self-discovery, encouraging patients to draw personal mandalas as mirrors of the psyche. Navajo sand paintings share uncanny similarities, using symmetrical designs in healing ceremonies. Even our everyday world pulses with mandalic echoes, from the concentric rings of a sliced tree trunk to the spiraling arms of distant galaxies. Perhaps that's their ultimate lesson, that the universe's order and our inner stillness are reflections of the same sacred pattern. And in that recognition, we find not just beauty, but a path home. Standing sentinel at the edge of the Giza Plateau, the Great Sphinx isn't just Egypt's most iconic monument. It's a shapeshifter of myth, its influence slinking across continents and cultures like a whisper in the wind. With the body of a lion and the face of a king, this colossal guardian seems uniquely Egyptian, but dig deeper, and you'll find its siblings lurking in the legends of Greece, Mesopotamia, and beyond. The Greeks imagined their sphinx as a winged monster with a woman's face, perching on cliffs to pose deadly riddles to travelers. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening? She'd hiss a question famously answered by Oedipus, sealing her fate. But here's the twist: the Greek Sphinx wasn't just a villain. She was a mirror, reflecting humanity's hunger to outwit the unknown. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, the Lamashu stood watch, winged bulls or lions with human heads, carved into palace gates to ward off evil. Though they lacked the riddling tongue of their Egyptian and Greek cousins, their hybrid forms carried the same message: wisdom isn't singular. It's a fusion of beast and intellect, strength and subtlety. Even Hindu tradition boasts its own version, the Pura Shamriga, a lion-man creature still worshipped in some temples as a remover of obstacles. What's astonishing isn't just their shared anatomy, but their shared purpose. Whether crouched in the sands of Giza or guarding Assyrian throne rooms, these creatures all serve as thresholds, bridges between the mundane and the divine, challenging those who approach to prove their worth. But why does this motif recur so persistently? Perhaps because the Sphinx embodies humanity's oldest dilemma, the tension between knowledge and power. The Egyptian Sphinx, believed to represent the pharaoh as both conqueror and sage, gazes eternally eastward, not just toward the rising sun, but toward the unknown. Its missing nose, often wrongly blamed on Napoleon's cannons, may symbolize the fragility of wisdom in the face of time. Meanwhile, the Greek Sphinx's fatal flaw was her arrogance, assuming her riddle was unanswerable. Together, they form a cautionary duo. One warns against forgetting, the other against overconfidence. Modern archaeology adds another layer. Recent scans suggest hidden chambers may snake beneath the Great Sphinx's paws, reigniting age-old speculation about sealed libraries or lost halls of records. Whether these voids hold secrets or simply geological quirks, the allure persists, proof that even in an age of satellites and AI, the Sphinx still asks its silent questions. And that's the real magic. These creatures aren't relics, they're ongoing conversations. Every time we stare into those weathered eyes, we're not just looking at the past. We're measuring ourselves against the eternal riddle of what it means to be both beast and thinker, destroyer and seeker, in a world that forever demands we prove we belong. Roots gripping the underworld, branches brushing the heavens, the tree of life isn't just a symbol, it's a living bridge between every realm of existence. Picture Yggdrasil, the colossal ash tree of Norse mythology, its trunk piercing through 9 worlds, from the icy plains of Niflheim to the fiery halls of Muspelheim. Dragons gnaw at its roots, eagles nest in its crown, and the squirrel Ratatoska scurries up and down its bark, carrying insults between them. This wasn't just poetic imagery, it was a cosmic map, showing how all things, even enemies, are bound together. Now shift your gaze to the Kabbalistic tree of life, its 10 luminous spheres or sephirot, pulsing with divine energy. Each one from Keter, the crown of infinite light, to Malkuth, the kingdom of earthly existence, forms a pathway for creation itself to flow downward into our world. 2 trees, 2 cultures, yet both whisper the same truth: nothing stands alone. What's mesmerizing is how this symbol erupts independently across time and space. The ancient Egyptians revered the sycamore fig, its branches offering shade to souls in the afterlife, while Mesopotamians carved sacred trees into cylinder seals, their fronds dripping with life-giving water. In Mesoamerica, the Maya envisioned the ceiba tree as the axis of the world, its roots tunneling into Xibalba, the underworld, and its branches cradling the stars. Even biology echoes this vision. Modern neural networks mirror the tree's fractal branching, and the human circulatory system maps its trunk and limbs design. It's as if the symbol isn't just a metaphor but a blueprint etched into reality itself. But here's the twist: these trees aren't passive, they're dynamic, even perilous. In Norse lore, Odin hung himself from Yggdrasil for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, to win the secret of runes. The Kabbalistic tree demands balance. Too much divine judgment, Jevura, without compassion cheesed, and the universe tilts into chaos. The Aztec tree of Tamonchon bled when broken, its fruit becoming human hearts. These aren't just pretty myths, they're warnings. Knowledge, connection, even life itself come at a cost. Yet the tree's greatest lesson might be its resilience. After centuries, it still roots itself in our collective imagination. From Tolkien's 2 trees of Valinor to the Tree of Souls in Avatar. Scientists even use tree ring data to decode climate history, proving nature's memory is written in bark. Perhaps that's why this symbol endures. It doesn't just link worlds, it reminds us that growth requires both reaching and grounding, and that every leaf, every soul, is part of something older and wiser than we can fathom. Hidden within the stained glass of Gothic cathedrals and the precise proportions of Renaissance masterpieces lies a shape so fundamental, it's been called the womb of geometry, the Vesica Piscis. Picture 2 perfect circles overlapping just enough to create an almond-shaped space between them, a form resembling a fish's bladder, which is where its Latin name originates. But don't let its simplicity fool you. This unassuming figure is the hidden scaffolding behind some of history's most sacred art, from the halos encircling Christ's head in medieval paintings to the very layout of ancient temples. What makes the Vesica Piscis extraordinary isn't just its geometry, it's the layers of meaning compressed into its curves. To early Christians, the shape symbolized the intersection of heaven and earth, the moment the divine pierced the material world. The almond-like space at its center, known as the mandorla, often framed depictions of Christ or the Virgin Mary, visually reinforcing their role as bridges between realms. Step into Chartres Cathedral, and you'll find this motif everywhere, from the rose windows to the floor labyrinths, each one a silent sermon in stone and light. But the symbol's roots dig far deeper than Christianity. The ancient Egyptians used the Vesica Piscis to map sacred proportions in their architecture, embedding it in the dimensions of the Great Pyramid's inner chambers. Pythagoras, the father of geometry, saw it as the birth canal of creation, the first shape to emerge from the void. Even in nature, the pattern recurs, from the overlapping air bubbles in frozen ice to the precise arrangement of petals in certain flowers, as if the universe itself favors this elegant intersection. Mathematically, the Vesica Piscis is a powerhouse. Its proportions generate the square root of 3, a ratio foundational to everything from musical harmonics to quantum physics. Medieval masons used it as a secret blueprint, employing its geometry to align cathedrals with celestial events. Some researchers even suggest that the shape's unique resonance, the way sound waves interact within its form, might explain why chanting in Gothic churches feels so transcendent. Yet for all its precision, the Vesica Piscis remains deeply enigmatic. Why does this shape appear in the sacred art of cultures separated by oceans and millennia? Is it simply a visual shorthand for harmony, or does it tap into something more profound, a universal language of proportion that our ancestors sensed but couldn't fully articulate? Today, as scientists uncover the geometric patterns underlying everything from DNA to galaxy clusters, the Vesica Piscis whispers a tantalizing possibility that the sacred and the scientific were never truly separate, just different paths toward the same hidden truth. From the bustling souks of Marrakech to the quiet corners of Jerusalem's ancient synagogues, one symbol appears again and again, a hand often cradling an eye, its fingers outstretched like a shield against unseen dangers. This is the Hand of Fatima, or Hamsa, a talisman so universal that it slips effortlessly across religious and cultural lines, uniting Jewish, Muslim, and even Buddhist traditions under its protective embrace. But what makes this symbol so enduring? Its power lies not just in its design, but in the way it mirrors humanity's deepest fears and hopes. To trace the Hamsa's origins is to wander through a labyrinth of shared history. In Islam, it's tied to Fatima, the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, whose hand became a symbol of patience and divine protection after a legend tells of her enduring unbearable pain without complaint. For Jews, it's the hand of Miriam, sister of Moses, representing the 5 books of the Torah and the sheltering presence of God. Even in ancient Mesopotamia, open-handed amulets warded off the evil eye centuries before these faiths arose. The genius of the Hamsa is its adaptability, whether crafted in silver filigree by Moroccan artisans, painted onto Turkish ceramics, or tattooed onto the wrists of modern spiritual seekers. It carries the same quiet promise: safety in a chaotic world. The eye embedded in many Hamsa designs adds another layer of intrigue. Far from being passive, this eye stares back at misfortune, turning the symbol into both shield and counterattack. In Lebanon, mothers pin Hamsas to their children's clothing, while in Andalusia, the motif graces door knockers, deflecting envy before it crosses the threshold. What's fascinating is how the symbol's meaning shifts with its orientation: fingers upward for defense, downward for blessing, proving that even ancient symbols can hold multitudes. Modern science offers a surprising twist to the Hamsa's longevity. Psychological studies suggest that hand-shaped symbols trigger primal comfort, recalling an infant's instinct to grasp a parent's finger for security. Perhaps that's why, in our digital age, the Hamsa thrives as never before, etched onto smartphone cases, dangling from rearview mirrors, a tactile anchor in an intangible world. Its persistence whispers an uncomfortable truth. No matter how advanced we become, we still crave something to hold onto when the dark presses in. Yet the Hamsa's true magic isn't in warding off evil, but in revealing how much we all share. When a Jewish grandmother in Brooklyn and a Berber weaver in the Atlas Mountains both reach for the same symbol, they're speaking a silent language older than borders, older than dogma. It's a reminder that beneath our differences, we all fear the same shadows and clutch the same light. Beneath the ruins of Wewelsburg Castle, where SS officers once gathered in shadowed halls, a chilling symbol still lingers: the black sun. 12 jagged sig runes radiate outward like frozen lightning, forming a wheel of dark power. The Nazis wielded it as an emblem of occult superiority, but its origins stretch far beyond the Third Reich, into realms where light and shadow intertwine. This is no simple swastika-like appropriation. The Black Sun's journey from alchemical manuscripts to SS medallions reveals how symbols can be hollowed out, filled with new terrors, and unleashed upon the world. Long before Hitler's architects etched it into castle floors, the black sun flickered in the margins of medieval grimoires. Alchemists sketched it as the Sol Niger, the black sun, a paradoxical phase in the magnum opus where base metals seem to decay before transmuting into gold. In this context, it wasn't a symbol of hate, but of transformation through dissolution. The mystic Jacob Boehme wrote of it in the 17th century as a necessary darkness, the seed of the new dawn. Even earlier, Persian Zoroastrians revered the black sun as a guardian against chaos, its dark rays symbolizing the unseeable divine. These threads whisper a truth. What the Nazis twisted into a weapon began as a meditation on rebirth through rupture. Yet the symbol's shift into infamy wasn't accidental. SS Chief Heinrich Himmler, obsessed with occult lore, grafted the black sun onto his vision of a pagan Aryan empire. At Wewelsburg, the symbol's 12 arms mirrored the 12 knights of his imagined round table, while its center allegedly pulsed with vril energy, a pseudoscientific force ripped from Victorian occult fiction. The castle itself became a dark mandala with the black sun mosaic at its heart, channeling what one survivor later called a magnetism of madness. Here, history bends unnervingly. A tool meant to represent spiritual alchemy became a blueprint for genocide. What makes the black sun uniquely unsettling is its afterlife. Unlike the swastika, which carries visible ancient roots, the black sun's pre-Nazi history is obscure enough to allow dangerous reinvention. Today, it festers in the iconography of extremist groups, its jagged spokes repurposed as coded hate. Yet simultaneously, it's been reclaimed by some neo-pagan circles as a symbol of resistance against dogma, a fraught redemption for an emblem so stained. The black sun's duality forces a haunting question: can a symbol ever be cleansed? Or does its power lie precisely in its ability to absorb humanity's best and worst impulses, reflecting back whatever darkness or light we bring to it? Perhaps the answer is written in its very design, 12 paths radiating outward, forever balancing on the edge of meaning, waiting for the next hand to turn the wheel. Look at the logo for any major tech company today, and you might catch glimpses of symbols carved millennia ago. The Bluetooth logo, that's actually the merged runes of Harald Bluetooth's initials, a Viking king who united Scandinavia. The triple spiral in modern wellness apps, a direct descendant of the Celtic Triskelion, representing eternal motion. Even the all-seeing eye in countless movie studio intros traces back to the Eye of Horus. These aren't just aesthetic choices, they're proof that ancient symbols still pulse with power in our subconscious, bridging the gap between sacred tradition and digital age branding. Hollywood has long understood this magnetic pull. When Indiana Jones deciphers the Staff of Ro's markings in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or when the Tesseract glows with Norse runes in The Avengers, filmmakers tap into a primal recognition. These symbols carry instant gravitas because they're pre-loaded with mystery. A Mayan glyph doesn't need exposition, its mere presence suggests hidden knowledge, a shortcut to storytelling depth. Video games like Assassin's Creed take this further, weaving real historical symbols into their lore. The animus glitch effects, those fracturing triangles, owe a debt to the Valknut, the same Norse symbol that once marked passage to Valhalla. Corporate branding teams exploit this same psychological wiring. Amazon's smiling arrow isn't just a delivery promise. It's a sly nod to the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its tail, symbolizing infinite cycles. Starbucks' twin-tailed siren mirrors Mesopotamian Lamashu, hybrid creatures that guarded gateways. Even social media platforms lean into the trend. Twitter's bird echoes the Egyptian Bennu, a heron-like symbol of rebirth, while Snapchat's ghost recalls the hollow-eyed spirits painted in Neolithic caves. These companies aren't just borrowing pretty shapes, they're hijacking millennia of accumulated meaning to make their brands feel timeless, trustworthy, or transformative. But why do these symbols resonate so deeply in an age of algorithms and AI? Neuroscience offers clues. Studies show our brains process geometric symbols like mandalas or labyrinths faster than text, triggering the same pattern recognition instincts that helped ancestors spot predators in tall grass. The triquetra's endless loops or the Fibonacci spiral's perfect ratios activate the brain's default mode network, the same region that lights up during meditation or prayer. In a world oversaturated with information, these shapes cut through the noise like cognitive shorthand, delivering complexity in a glance. Yet there's a darker side to this revival. Some symbols, like the swastika or black sun, carry such horrific modern baggage that their original meanings may never be reclaimed. Others risk becoming empty aesthetic shells. Think of yoga studios slapping sacred Sanskrit mantras on water bottles as motivational decor. The line between homage and appropriation blurs when a tattoo parlor inks a Maori tribal design without context, or when a fashion brand reduces Navajo storm patterns to a sweater print. Symbols survive by evolving, but they wither when stripped of their stories. Perhaps their endurance ultimately speaks to a universal human craving. In a digitized world where emojis have become our newest hieroglyphs, we still reach for these ancient shapes because they offer something algorithms can't: a connection to the eternal. When you swipe on a phone screen adorned with a Greek meander pattern, or binge a show framed by Viking runes, you're not just consuming content. You're participating in the oldest conversation there is, the need to leave marks that outlast us, to whisper across time, we were here too. From the Ankh's promise of eternal life to the Valknut's knot of destiny, these symbols are far more than ancient graffiti. They're the fingerprints of human consciousness, pressed into time itself. Think about it, every curve of the Ouroboros, every spiral of the Triskelion, carries the weight of generations who stared at the same stars, wrestled with the same existential questions, and left their answers in a language of shape and shadow. What's astonishing isn't just their artistry, but their stubborn refusal to fade. The Mayan glyphs predicting celestial events with razor precision, the Dogon star maps etched in sand, these weren't just tools. They were dialogues with the universe, invitations to join a conversation that began millennia before us. And now the baton passes to us. Look around, the logos on your devices, the tattoos on your skin, even the emojis in your texts, they're all part of the same unbroken chain. Future archaeologists might puzzle over our QR codes as fervently as we decipher Nazca lines, or analyze viral memes with the same curiosity we bring to Phaistos Disc symbols. Because here's the truth these ancient marks reveal: humanity's greatest obsession isn't gold or glory, it's meaning. We've always been desperate to say this mattered. We were here, so what's next? Perhaps the symbols we create today, neon street art, digital avatars, even space probes etched with golden records, will someday whisper our stories to civilizations we can't yet imagine. The cycle never ends, and that's the real magic. These shapes aren't locked in the past. They're alive, evolving, waiting for the next curious mind to pick up the thread. Now it's your turn. Which symbol speaks to you across the centuries? Drop your thoughts below, and let's keep the conversation spinning. Don't forget to subscribe, because history's greatest mysteries are always one